Welcome to part 2 of my tutorial series where we're creating this sci-fi worker robot in Blender. So in part 1 we created the robot's head, and in this part we are going to be modeling the neck for the robot. Now as I said in part 1 of the tutorial series, if you'd like to help support me you can purchase the finished tutorial files on my Gumroad store and Patreon. I'll have a link in the description, and that is a great way to help support this channel. And then also before we start, I want to give a huge thanks to Blender Grid for sponsoring this video. Blender Grid is an easy to use render farm specifically designed for Blender. I've used the service and I highly recommend it. Upload your Blender file or a zip file with the blend file and textures. You can change the render settings on the website before rendering. Blender Grid will let you know the cost before you start the render. You can even choose when you want the render to finish if you're on a tight deadline. While it renders, you can check the rendered frames to make sure everything is rendering properly. Once it finishes, just download the files and compile the frames in a video editor. Use the link in the description to get $20 of render credit on your first render. Alright, so let's get started with creating the robot's neck. So I'm going to select the main object, the main head object, and I'm going to tab into edit mode. So I'm actually going to start by adding a box right here, and that's going to be the starting of the neck. So I'm going to press 3 or click right up here to the face select, and I'm just going to select this face right here, this bottom face. So I'm now going to press Shift D, and Shift D will duplicate it, and I want to bring this box over, and then I'm also going to press S to scale, and I want to scale this on the Y-axis and just make it a bit thinner. I can press 1 on the numpad to go to front view, and I'll just bring it in a little bit as well, so a little bit closer to the mirror, and I'll also bring it down a little bit. So I'll bring it down to about there. I'm now going to press E to extrude, and I'll extrude the box up so it has more thickness. And then also, if we go inside the robot's head, you can see we have this extra face here that we don't need, so I'll press X to delete, and we want to delete the faces. Now you can see that the normals need to be recalculated because it's kind of different. The shading is different on this box from the rest of the objects. So I'm going to hover my mouse over this object and I'll press L, and that will select all of the linked vertices, and then I can press Shift N to recalculate the normals. I'm going to tab back into object mode now, and I want to select this face right here. I'm now going to press Shift D to duplicate, and I'm going to bring it in and up, and I also need to scale this, so I'll press S to scale, and I'm going to scale it on the Z axis, and I'll make it quite a bit smaller and just kind of stick it right here. I'm now going to press E to extrude, and I'm going to extrude this back in so that we have another box kind of coming out there. And then also right in here, we don't need these faces, so I'm going to shift and select these two faces, and I'll delete the faces. So X to delete, and I'm going to delete the faces. All right, and then again, we need to select this, so press L to select the linked vertices, and I'll press Shift N again to recalculate the normals. So I want to add another little detail down here, so I'm going to add another little box here. So I'm going to select this face, and I will press I, and that's going to inset the face. Now I want to press B, and that's going to toggle the boundary so that it's not connected to the mirror. And I'll just scale this down just like that. So I can now just scale this, so I'll press S to scale, and I'm going to scale it on the Y-axis, scale it out, then I'll press S to scale, and we'll make the whole thing a bit smaller, and then I can press G to grab, and I'm going to move this back on the Y-axis. Just bring it over like that, and then you can also scale it in a little bit. And then I can press E to extrude, and we're going to extrude that down just like that. Alright, so now we have a nice little detail there for the robot's neck. Let's press Ctrl S again to save. So his head will have a piece right here, which will make him look up and down, and then right around here, kind of along the top of the body, it's going to have another piece which will make him rotate back and forth. So we first want to create that piece right there, that rotating piece. So I'm going to press Shift C to center the 3D cursor, and then I'll press Shift A, and I'm going to start by adding a cylinder. Now right behind me, if you click on those add cylinder settings right there, that's going to open up the add cylinder settings, and we can change the vertice count. So I want to change the vertice count to 32. It might already be on 32 on default, but I'm just going to set it to 32 so that there's a bit more detail there in that cylinder, and then I can just close the add cylinder settings. So I'm now going to tab into edit mode, and I'm going to press G to grab, and I'll click and let go with my mouse wheel, constrain it to the X axis and bring it over. Then I want to rotate it so it's over sideways, so I'll press R to rotate. I'm going to rotate it on the Y-axis, and then I want to rotate it over exactly by 90 degrees. So I'm going to type in 90 and then enter. So it's rotated exactly over by 90 degrees. Now I want to add a mirror modifier on this one as well. So I'm going to click right over here on the modifier properties, and then I can click on add modifier, and we're going to go right down here, and I'm going to add the mirror modifier. Then I'm also going to press 3 to go to the face select, and then just select this face right here. And I want to delete this face because we're going to be merging these together in the mirror, and so I don't want a face right in there in the very center of the mirror. So I'll press X to delete, and we are going to delete the faces, so just delete the faces. Then I can press A to select everything. I'll press S to scale, and I'm just going to scale it up so that I can see it a little bit better. Then I'll press G to grab, click with my mouse wheel, and we're going to constrain it to the X-axis, and I'm just going to bring it in there. So now what I want to do is I want to turn on the clipping button, and now I can press G to grab, and I want to bring it back out on the X-axis, and you can see that now the center has merged. So I can now press S to scale. We're going to scale the entire thing much smaller, just like that, and then I can tab back into object mode. So I'll press G to grab. We're going to bring it down on the Z-axis. I can also press 3 to go to side view, and then I can bring it over just like that. And then once again, I added the mirror modifier on this side, but I actually want it to be over on this side just so that it's a bit easier to use. So I'm going to tab back into object mode, and I'm going to select the mirror, and I'll press Ctrl A to apply the mirror modifier. Then if you go to the vertex select, I'm going to Alt and select that loop of vertices. I can press X to delete, and I want to delete the vertices so that half of it's deleted, and then we can click on add modifier. We're just going to add the mirror modifier, and then again we need to turn on clipping. So now it's over on this side instead of that side. All right, now this is way too long, so I'm going to press G to grab, and I'm going to bring it in much closer, just like that. And if I press 1 to go to front view, specifically I want it to end kind of about here. So I'll press G to grab, and I'm going to click with my mouse wheel, bring it back on the X-axis, and just bring it about that far. And then just click to place it right there. So I'm now going to hold down the Alt key, and I'm going to Alt select that ring of vertices, and I want to press E to extrude, and I'm going to extrude this out. I'll make it a little bit farther, something like that. And why I'm extruding this out again is so that I can select this ring of faces and extrude it back in. So I'll now press E to extrude, and I'll extrude this out a little bit farther, just like that. Then I'm going to press E to extrude again, but then right after that, I'm going to press S to scale. And I'm going to scale this out, and I'm going to make it pretty big, but not so big that it goes through the top of the robot's head. So just about that. Then I can press E to extrude again, and we're going to extrude that out like that, and then just click to place it. Now this is going out a little bit too far, so I'm going to double tap the A key to select everything, and then I will press G to grab, constrain it to the X-axis, and just push it back in a little bit. So I'm now going to press 3 on the top of my keyboard to go to the face select. I'm going to hold down the Alt key and Alt select that ring of vertices, and then I want to press E to extrude, but I want to extrude it in. So after pressing E, I'm going to press S to scale, and we're going to scale it in. Now I don't want there to be that angle right there, I just want to scale it directly in without there being an angle. So after I press S to scale, I'm going to press Shift X. And Shift X is going to remove the X-axis, so it's going to scale it on the Z and the Y-axis, but not the X-axis. So I'll just make it a bit smaller like that, and then just click to place that. So now you can see that that's just been extruded in, but it's perfectly flat, and this is a 90-degree angle, and this is a 90-degree angle as well. So I want to add some more details kind of along the side here. So I'm going to tab back into edit mode, and I'm going to select this face, and then shift select this face. And then I'm going to go down here to the bottom and hold down the shift key, and I'm going to shift select these two faces, go over here, shift and select these two faces, and then go up here and shift select these two faces. Now if this is kind of pushing up too close, you can select that entire loop and scale it down, but I'm just going to select those faces. That is good. So I'm now going to press E to extrude, but then immediately after that, I'm going to press S, and that will scale it out. Now I don't want to scale it on the X-axis, I just want to scale it on the Z and Y. So I'm going to press Shift X, and that way it'll just scale it on the Z and Y, but not the X. And I'll just scale that out and then just click to place that. So now this is perfectly flat to this face, and that's flat to this face because we didn't scale it on the X-axis. All right, so that is looking good. I do want to add some more detail on the front here, this front piece. So just make sure you're in the face select, and I'm going to select this face. So I can now press I to inset, and that's going to inset a face. So it'll add a face inside a face. Just click to place that, and then I can press E to extrude, and we're going to extrude that back and then just place it right there. Then I want to press I again, and that's going to inset it again. We'll just add a little detail there. Then I'll press E to extrude, and we're going to extrude that out a bit, not super far, just like that. Then I'm going to press I to inset, and we're going to scale that down. I'll scale it down a bit farther and then click to place that right there. All right, and then once again, I'll press E to extrude, and we're going to extrude that back in. So I can now tab back into object mode. You can see we have a nice sci-fi detail there in the center of that. Now it is kind of blocky here on the side, so using the object context menu, I'm going to shade this object smooth, and then there's a bunch of shading issues, and that is because we need to add more geometry. But instead of manually adding bevels, we can just add the bevel modifier and it'll add the bevels all around. So I'm going to click on add modifier, and I'm going to go right down here, and I'm going to add the bevel modifier. And then just like before, the segments, I'm going to turn that up to 4. I like the segments being at 4. And then you can turn the amount down. So I'm going to hold down the shift key and I'm going to click and drag, and that's going to make the movements very sensitive, and I'm going to make that smaller. So I'll make it pretty small to about there. And then it looks like this is a little bit higher than it needs to be, and it's also pretty close to the bottom of the robot's head. So I can press G to grab and then Z, and we're going to bring it down on the Z axis, and that way there's a bit more space. All right, now before we continue with the robot's neck, I do want to add some more detail right here on the back of the robot's head. So I'm going to just select this object, the head object, and I'm going to tab into edit mode. And I actually want to select this face right here. So now that that's selected, I'll press Shift D, and I'm going to bring it over here to the back of the robot, and I just want to put it here, and then I want to bring it up on the Z axis. I'll scale it down a little bit, and then I'll push it right up there, just like that, and I'll push it a little bit closer. So I'm now going to go to the vertex select, and then I'm going to select this vertex and shift select this vertex, and I can press G to grab and bring it down on the Z axis, just like that. And then I can go back to the face select by pressing 3 on the top of my keyboard, or you can also click right there. I'm going to select this face, and then I'm going to bring it out a little bit, and then I'll press E to extrude. We're going to extrude that back in. And this time the normals actually don't need to be recalculated because we'd extruded it the other way. So we don't need to recalculate the normals. Now, if you go inside here, again, we have some extra faces that we don't need. So I'll select this face, and I'm going to delete the faces, and also select this face, and I'm going to delete the faces. So there we go. All right, let's go back over here. And now I want to create some beams, which are going down here. And then that's going to go to the bottom of the neck and kind of the starting of the body. So I'm going to select this object right here, and I'm going to tab into edit mode. And then I need to go right over here, and I'm going to press 1 to go to the vertex select. And then I want to hold down the Alt key, and I'm going to Alt select that loop of vertices. I'm now going to press Shift D, and that will duplicate the ring. And I'm going to bring it over on the X axis. So bring it over like that, and then just place it right there. So I now want to separate this into a separate object. So to do that, I'm going to press P, and then I want to separate this by selection because I want to separate everything that's selected into its own object. So I'm just going to click that. I'm going to tab back into object mode, and you can see now if I select this, this is its own object. So I can now tab into edit mode. I'm just going to press period on the numpad to zoom over to it. And I want to bring this over, kind of bring it over so it's just pushing up against the side there. And then I also want to press S to scale, and I'm going to scale it down quite a bit. So I'm going to scale it down right there. So I can now press E to extrude, and then right after that, I'll press S to scale, and I want to scale this up so it's a bit thicker. So scale that up just like that. I'll now press E to extrude, and I'm going to extrude this on the X axis, and I'm going to bring that over. Now to be able to see that a bit more clearly, I'm going to press 1 on the numpad. That's going to go to the front orthographic view, and then you can kind of see that gap there. So I'll press G to grab, bring it over on the X axis, and I'll just bring that over so that it's about matching that right there. So I can now press E to extrude and then S to scale. We're going to scale this way down just so that it goes right in there until you can't see it. All right, that is good. So I'm going to double tap the A key, and then I can press Shift N, and that will recalculate the normals. And now that looks correct. The shading looks correct. And then also with the object context menu, I need to shade this object smooth. And because we duplicated this object from this object, it still has all of the modifier properties. So it still has the mirror and the bevel because we separated this from this object. Now, if I compare the size of this compared to this is actually a little bit too big. So I'm going to tab into edit mode, and I want to scale this loop down. So to scale it down, I'm going to press 3 to go to the face select, and then I'm going to hold down the Alt key and Alt select that ring of vertices. And then also I'm going to hold down the Shift and Alt key, and I'll Shift Alt select that ring of vertices. We're going to go up here, hold down the Shift and Alt key and select that ring of vertices. Shift Alt and select that ring of vertices, and then right down here, Shift Alt and select that ring of vertices. And then also right in here, I'm going to Shift Alt and select that ring of vertices. So I want to scale this whole thing down a little bit. So I'm going to press S to scale, and then I want to press Shift X, and that way it's not going to scale it on the X axis. So I'll scale this down just like that, click to place that, and then I want to deselect this inner loop. So I'll Shift Alt and select this again, and that'll deselect it. And I want to scale the whole thing down a bit more. So I'll press S to scale, and then I'll press Shift X, and scale that down even more, just like that. Click to place that. Tab back into object mode. I'm going to select this object and I will tab into edit mode. And then I want to hold down the Alt key and select that loop of faces, and I will press S to scale. I'm going to press Shift X and I'm going to make that a bit bigger, just like that. All right, so I want this to be a little bit bigger. And then I also want this to be a little bit wider. So I'm going to press 1 to go to the front view, and I want to select this object and shift select this object. So we have both of them selected. I can now tab into edit mode, and now we are in the multi-object editing. So if I press Z, I can move my mouse over to go into wireframe. I'm just going to make sure everything is deselected, and then I'm just going to click and drag and box select all of those vertices. Then I can press G to grab. We're going to bring it over on the X-axis, and I'm just going to make that a bit thicker and then click to place that. All right, so I'm going to go back into object mode and you can see now that is much thicker. So I'm going to tab into edit mode just on this object, and I now want to extrude some beams down, and then it's going to connect to the robot's body. So I'm going to press 3 or click right up here to the face select, and I want to select the 6 bottom faces. So I'm going to select this face and then hold down the shift key and select this face, and then this face and this face. So we now have 4 selected, and then hold down the shift key and select these other faces. So we now have 6 faces selected. So I'm now going to press 1 to go to front view, and I'm just going to zoom out. So I'm now going to press E to extrude, and I'm going to extrude this down, and I'm going to extrude it down by about 1 grid. So you can see here's a grid, here's another, and then it's extruding down. So this is about 1 grid. So I'll just bring it down that far, and then you can see that it's kind of rotated, and I don't really need that. So I'll just press S to scale. I'll scale it on the Z axis, and then I can type in 0 and enter. So it's perfectly flat. And then we aren't going to need these faces in here because this is going to go inside another metal piece. So I'm going to press X to delete, and we can just delete the faces. All right, there we go. So we now have this neck piece right here. So basically this object is going to rotate, and it's going to rotate the entire head. And then this piece right here will be connected to the body. All right, so now I'm going to be creating a circular object right here on the bottom that this object will connect into. So I'll press Shift C again to center the 3D cursor. And I'm going to press Shift A, and then I'm going to go right down here, and I'm going to add a circle. And then right behind me, if you click on the add circle settings, I'm going to change the vertices to 32. So just make sure they are set to 32. They should be set to 32 on default. So we can't really see the circle, and that's because it's inside the head. So I'll press G and Z. We're going to bring the circle down, just like that, and then I will tab into edit mode. So I'm going to press S to scale, and let's scale the whole thing up, and we're going to scale it so that it's a little bit bigger than this piece right here. Now you can see that it's kind of offset, so it's kind of over right here instead of over here. So I'm going to tab back into object mode, and I'll press G to grab, and I'm going to bring it over like that. And to make sure this is very close to the center of the robot's neck, I'm going to press 3 on the numpad to go to side view, and I'm now just going to shift and select both of these objects, and then I will tab into edit mode. So I'm going to press A to deselect everything, and then I will Alt and just select this ring of vertices, and I'll press 3 again to go to the side view. So this vertice, I want that to be right there on this vertice that's in the center of the neck piece. So I'll press G to grab, we're going to bring it over on the y-axis, and I'm just going to stick it there, just like that. So now that should be right about in the center. So I can now tab back into object mode, and that is looking very good. So I'll select this object again, we're going to tab into edit mode, and then I want to press E to extrude, then I'm going to press S to scale, and we're going to scale this down so that it's just going through there. So just like that. And then also I can Alt and select this loop of vertices right here, and I'll press S to scale and scale it down a little bit. So basically this beam, this neck piece right here is going to go into this circular piece. So I'm going to Alt and select this loop again. So just Alt and select that loop of vertices. I'll scale it down a little bit more, and then I'm going to press E to extrude, and I'm going to extrude it down on the Z axis, and I'll just scale it down a little bit. Then I'm going to press E to extrude again, and then I'll press S to scale. We're going to scale that down. Just click to place that. I'll press E again to extrude. I'll extrude that up on the Z axis, just like that. And then I'm going to press E again, and then S again. So we're going to extrude it and then scale it down. Bring it down like that. Click to place that. And then I'll press E to extrude. We're going to bring it on the Z axis and just bring that down. Click to place that there, and then there's an open spot right here, and I just want to fill this. So to fill this, I'm going to press F, and F is going to make a face right in there. All right, now you can see that the normals need to be recalculated again because the shading looks a bit off. So I'm going to double tap the A key to select everything, and I'll press Shift N, and that'll recalculate the normals. So that is looking much better. And then kind of out here on the sides, I want to make that a bit thicker. So I'm going to hold down the Alt key. I'm just going to Alt select that loop of vertices. I'm going to press 1 to go to front view, and then I need to press E to extrude. We're going to extrude it down on the Z axis, just to extrude it down about that far. And then I can press E to extrude and S to scale, and we're going to just scale that down a little bit. Tab back into object mode, and that is looking very good. I also want to press G to grab and bring it up on the Z axis, just so that it's not quite as tall, so something like that. Now again, I want to shade it smooth so we can't see those faces right there. So I'm going to shade it smooth with the Object Context menu, and then we have some shading issues, and that is because I need to click on Add Modifier, and I'm going to go right down here, under Generate, I'm going to add a Bevel Modifier. And then just like all of the other objects, I'm going to turn these segments up to 4, and then hold down the Shift key and change the amount just so that it's really small, and that will make it look much more realistic. Let's press Ctrl S to save. Alright, now this piece is going to rotate, and that is going to rotate the head around on the Z-axis. So because this is going to rotate around, we need one more piece that's going to be stationary, and then that piece will connect to the body. So I'm going to tab into edit mode, and I need to Alt and select that loop of vertices. I'll press Shift D to duplicate. We're going to bring it down on the Z-axis. Click to place that, and then I need to separate this so that it's in its own object. So to make it its own object, I'm going to press P, and then I'm going to separate by selection. So I can now tab into object mode, select this object, we're going to tab into edit mode, I can press A to select everything, and I'm going to press S to scale and just scale it up slightly bigger. Then I can press F to fill a face in there, and then I want to press G and Z, and we're going to bring it up just so that it's resting right like that. Then I can press E to extrude, we're going to extrude it down on the Z axis and just bring it down like that. And then again, I need to press A to select everything. I'm going to press Shift N to recalculate the normals. And then also this face right in here, I don't need this face because this is actually going to go inside the body. So I'm going to click right here to go to the face select. I'm just going to select this face and I will delete it. So I'll press X to delete and I'll delete the faces. We can tab back into object mode, and then you can see that this still is looking a bit sharp. So I'm going to select this object, and using the object context menu, we can shade it smooth. All right, so we are almost done with this part, but I do want to create kind of some controller objects that can control these different objects, because later on in this tutorial series, we will be mechanically rigging the robot. So I want this object to rotate. That's going to rotate on the Z axis. And then I also want this object to rotate on the X axis, and that will rotate the robot's head and neck. So I'm first going to select this object, and I'm going to tab into edit mode. Now we could just select this object and rotate it, but if we create some bigger controller pieces, it's going to be easier to rotate. So I'm going to just find a spot right over here. So I'll just zoom in until I can see that loop. I'm going to press 1 to go to the vertex select, and then I'm just going to press A to deselect everything, and I'll Alt and select that ring of vertices. So we just have that ring selected. So I'll now press Shift D to duplicate. I'm going to click with my mouse wheel to constrain it to the X-axis and then drop it right there. Now I'm going to press S to scale, and I'm going to scale this way up so it's quite a bit bigger, and that way it'll be much easier to select. So I'll just drop it right there, just like that. So that is what we're going to use. We're just going to select this, and then we can just rotate it. And because this ring right here only has vertices and edges, you can't actually see it in rendered mode. So this will be invisible in rendered mode because you actually can only see faces in rendered mode, but edges and vertices by themselves are actually invisible. So you won't be able to see these in the rendered mode. So I want to do the same exact thing for this object right here. So I'm going to select this object. I'm going to tab into edit mode, and then I can Alt and select that ring of vertices. I'll press Shift D to duplicate, and then I'll press S to scale, and I want to make this pretty big, just like that, click to place that. So then I'll be able to rotate this. I can just select that entire thing and it'll rotate it. All right, so I'm just gonna press Ctrl S again to save, and this is gonna wrap it up for part 2 of the Sci-Fi Worker Robot tutorial series. So again, thank you for watching. I hope you've been enjoying this so far, and I hope you're learning a lot as well. So in the next part, part 3, we are going to be modeling the robot's body, and then we're also gonna be modeling the robot's legs. So as soon as part 3 is released, I will have it right up there on the end screen, and I'll also have the link in the video description. I'll be uploading one part each day of the tutorial series. So thanks for watching, and I will see you in part 3.